the time for
without any evidence to support it.
There is not a scintilla of evidence that this is true.
I have not seen the proof.
Have we seen proof of voter fraud at this point?
I have not seen the proof.
Have you seen any evidence of fraud occurring in your state?
Without any evidence to support it.
I have not seen the proof.
The ballots are out of control.
I have not seen the proof.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that.
Get rid of the ballots. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Remember that.
Get rid of the ballots.
Remember that.
Get rid of the ballots.
Remember that.
Get rid of the ballots.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
There is not a scintilla of evidence that this is true.
I have not seen the proof.
Get rid of the ballots. Get rid of the ballots. Get rid of the ballots.
You'll never know who the winner is, but the winner's going to be me.
Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to have get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
You'll never know who the winner is, but the winner's going to be me. It'll be the greatest rigged election, the greatest fraud ever perpetrated.
Get rid of the ballots. Get rid of the ballots. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Join me every Sunday afternoon for a new show where common citizens, you and I together, discuss with each other issues of today, where we demand proof and evidence is required, where we seek the truth and will not be silent. Join me this coming Sunday afternoon and take part in America's oldest and most honored tradition. Hello and welcome to The Left Speaks. Today is Sunday, December the 13th. We are now over a month after the election, and Trump is finally somewhat at least admitting via Twitter that there will be a Biden administration. After, I believe it's over 50 lawsuits, one victory that affected less than 100 votes in the state of Pennsylvania. 100 votes that were segregated from the other votes because they weren't expected to go through. They came in late, essentially. Where do we go from here? Do his followers accept the fact that there has been zero evidence provided for this massive multi-statewide conspiracy theory that there's election fraud, rigging the entire presidential election for a candidate who was not in power and did not have the U.S. government resources to affect this? Or does Trump continue to pour gasoline on the fire? Does Trump continue to motivate those among us who do not understand the nature of evidence and cannot accept the fact that their chosen one lost? Lost by millions of votes. The Supreme Court has declined to hear any of these cases. Multiple state courts in Arizona, in Nevada, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, with multiple judges appointed by both Democrats and Republicans, while saying it in nice, flowery legal language, have said that these cases are all bullshit. Excuse me. Trump can get up on Twitter and jump on Facebook and scream, "There's been fraud." But as I've said before, in 2 separate episodes on this show now, saying a thing does not make it true. Saying that Santa Claus is going to bring in a bunch of votes for Trump that weren't counted doesn't make it true. Saying that the Chinese hacked Dominion voting systems, or that the Democrats secretly rigged the election via these electronic machines, doesn't make it true. You need evidence. And every single time these cases have gone to court, Trump's attorneys are very careful to avoid the word fraud. Sure, they'll get up on TV and they'll hop on the internet, face the cameras and look directly in your face and say, "Oh yeah, there was a lot of fraud." But the minute they have to put their license on the line, the minute they're under oath making a legal accusation, the minute they're responsible for the words that come out of their mouth, you don't hear the word fraud. I think that's very telling. They're selling you a load of lies. Quit buying it. But again, now that all the courts have been exhausted, the question becomes, where do we go from here? Now, personally, I think it's very plain. I cannot rely on the current president, Donald Trump, to admit that he lost. Donald Trump is incapable of admitting that he loses things. Remember back in, I believe it was the 80s, when Forbes didn't put him on the richest 100 or 500 people list, and that was rigged against him? Remember when his inaugural crowd for his inauguration was smaller than Obama's? And that was the news media rigging the coverage against him? Remember the primaries he won? Those were legit back when he was running in 2016. But the ones he lost, those were rigged against him. There's a common theme here. Donald Trump will never get up on television and say, "Hey, that one got away from me. Lost that one." But he'll sure get up on television and he'll sure run ads and take your money and at least put part of it towards these lawsuits. The rest of it he's going to keep for later so he can remain politically relevant. So no, I don't think we can rely on President Trump to finally call the election and concede like a grown man should. Like any adult should. Just like we learn in Little League, when the game is over, you look at the scoreboard, and if you lost, you don't get to throw a temper tantrum and run to your car with your mommy. You still have to go out on the field and shake the opposing team's hands. Good job. I don't believe that's what we're going to see from this man. Time will tell whether I'm correct or incorrect, but I have no reason, no evidence from his prior behaviors to expect this. So where do we go from here? Well, based off what we've seen so far, right-wing conservative, far-right, mind you, conservative thought leaders, and I use that word very loosely, are starting to advocate for martial law. They're starting to advocate for secession from the Union. Gee, where have we heard this one before? They're starting to advocate for a redo of the election. Let's just keep redoing elections until we get the outcome we want, I guess. But that's where we're at. Do we start descending into violence? Or do enough Trump voters accept the fact that there's no evidence that this election was fraudulent, and that in this country we accept the results of elections? Trump and his allies are now 1-57 in post-election litigation, post-election lawsuits. That's counting all the lawsuits Donald Trump filed, signed in support of, all the lawsuits his own admitted legal team filed, and those filed challenging the results on his behalf. 1-57. The one, as I mentioned earlier, was in the state of Pennsylvania and affected about 100 votes. And it wasn't saying they were fraudulent. They weren't fake votes. They weren't, I don't know, secret Chinese communists snuck in Santa's red bag votes. They were votes that came in a little late. But hey, I'm willing to play by the rules here. We'll ignore the fact that everyone says that these were legitimate ballots. We'll ignore the fact that the person, the American citizen that filled that out, did so in good faith. We'll ignore the fact that the American citizen who filled out that ballot to vote was legal, wasn't committing some kind of voter fraud, and that their intent was clear from these ballots. We'll ignore all of that. They came in a few days late, so we'll toss them out. That's his one victory in 57 tries. 100 ballots that nobody is claiming were fraudulent. Some big, massive voter fraud conspiracy must be there because I'm not seeing it. 100 votes that weren't fake votes, that weren't somebody voting for a dead guy, that weren't a dead guy's votes. No, the only thing wrong with them is they came in a little late. You've had 58 tries in multiple states. And this is the best you can do. Even granting you that. Not even saying, hey, I think the vote should have counted. That's not fraud. Let that sink in. That is not fraud. Which is what your president is getting up and is claiming is going on. Now, I think that the majority of conservatives, including the ones I know personally, that I talk to on pretty much a daily or every other day basis, know this. I think this is a means to an end. I don't think they believe that there was massive multi-statewide election fraud. I think they may want to believe it so that they can get their way. But I think we're dealing with the same thing and the same thought process as an 8-year-old who started to realize that Santa isn't real. But they're going to keep believing in Santa because they want the presents. And I think that's exactly what we're dealing with here. The Texas Attorney General filed a lawsuit, which 17 other states, Republican states, mind you, attorneys general signed on with as friends of the lawsuit. Again claiming massive election fraud. Seven of the Supreme Court justices said that there's no standing for Texas to bring this lawsuit and said no thank you. The other two said that they were at least willing to hear the lawsuit, but that they would deny any recourse to it anyway because it's bullshit. Oh, I forgot to cough that time. Sorry, it's getting deep in here. So as I've asked multiple conservatives at this point, and still have not gotten a straightforward, honest, this is what it would take. What would it take for you to accept the fact that Trump lost, short of Donald Trump himself coming out and saying, I lost, guys. Thanks for all of your support. What would convince you? And that's a sincere question that I have yet from the true believers to get an answer to. What would it take? What would change your mind? Again, short of Donald Trump himself coming out and saying that he lost the election. Because I don't think that's ever going to happen. And if that's the only thing that will do it, well, then you're the 8-year-old waiting on Santa himself to show up and say, son, I'm not real. It's not going to happen. And you can go down in history being laughed at and ridiculed for hundreds of years. Because the con man usually doesn't admit that he was conning you. You can go down with the people in Jonestown who drank the Kool-Aid right at the end. let's turn the question around. What would convince me that Donald Trump is telling the truth and that there was massive election fraud in this election? That Dominion voting systems are hacked, and that the election was stolen from Donald Trump, and that he should have won. I'll tell you what would convince me. Evidence. That pesky little thing I've been asking for 2 months now. Yes, 2 months, well before the election, because this was blatantly obvious what he was going to do if you were watching what he was saying leading up to it. Most of those quotes in the intro trailer are from before the election. So for months, if you want me to take this seriously, I've been saying, I want to see some evidence. You know, the same thing all those courts said, all 57 of them. I don't need Donald Trump to come out and tell me, yeah, election fraud's real. I just need evidence. That's it. This isn't hard, guys. If I'm sitting in Santa's lap at 8 years old in the mall and I pull on his beard and I see that it's fake and it comes off his face, it's pretty good evidence that at least that guy ain't Santa. Beard's been pulled off this election fraud bullshit 57 times now. By the courts. That's ignoring all the other news media sources. That's ignoring all the other attorneys. If you're not capable of making a decision for yourself, and you're not capable of informing yourself because you're too busy, and you don't trust the mainstream media because, ooh, they're out to get you, and you can't separate fact from fiction, so you just think it's all propaganda, you've now got 58 courts telling you that the beard's been pulled off all this election fraud claim stuff. There's nothing here. Nothing beyond the historical rate. You know, what, the one that's so low that the guy walking next to you is more likely to be struck by lightning than he is to commit voter fraud? Yeah. And you expect me to take this seriously? Remotely? Look, Santa's never going to show up at your house and tell you he's not real and the whole thing is fake. And Trump's not going to get on TV and tell you that he's real, but the whole election fraud thing is fake. So grow up. Look at evidence. Or at least figure out what in the hell it would take to change your mind. Because if I have to wait for Trump to show up at your door and say, hey, yeah, that whole election fraud thing, it was kind of BS. I just didn't want to admit that I lost. Well, the next time Donald Trump shows up at your house for a cup of coffee or a beer, you feel free to let me know. Until then, I'm just going to write you off as somebody who doesn't understand the nature of evidence and can't read. And if you think I'm wrong, or if there's something that would change your mind, feel free to call in. Numbers on the screen. It's toll free for a reason. I'm not hiding from you, and I'm not hiding behind a keyboard. Because I really want to know, what would it take? Because if there's nothing that'll ever change your mind on anything, including something so simple to provide evidence for, like voter fraud, then the next time that the Democrats or the progressives won't compromise with you, this is why. Because there's nothing that will ever change your mind. There's nothing that will let you see something, any issue, from my point of view. So how can I possibly compromise with you? Santa either exists or he does not exist. Election fraud, massive, multi-statewide, conspiracy theory level election fraud to steal a presidential election either happened or did not happen. If you want to come out and say that it happened, then I'm going to ask what makes you think that. And if your only answer is, well, Donald Trump says so, well, Santa at the mall will tell you he's real too. I don't see reindeer parked out in front of the mall. I don't see reindeer sitting on the roof. I've never seen reindeer in a sleigh fly off of the roof. I've never seen Santa get on the elevator at a mall and go up to the top floor with a bag of reindeer feed. I've never seen Santa come in my house. Evidence, guys. Evidence is what helps us determine fact from fiction, reality from batshit crazy. I can find a schizophrenic homeless man on a corner who will tell me that he is Jesus, and he will really believe it. That doesn't make it true. What it means is that that man needs help accepting reality. And I don't need to keep telling him, yes, you're Jesus, and acting like he's Jesus. Trump keeps getting up and screaming election fraud. Again, providing equal evidence to the man who thinks he's Jesus. Trump, just like that man, needs help accepting reality. And continuing to play along is not helping the situation for the country. So, where do we go from here? Calls for military intervention from two right-wing influencers. No evidence, but we need to send in the military. Because that's how this country was founded. Yeah. When democracy doesn't go the way we want, just send in the army. Okay, so who are these two guys? Or two folks, I should say. They're nobodies. That's the response. Okay, cool. Milo Yiannopoulos, a former Breitbart fame until he got, shoved to the far right crazy wing and everybody saw what he was. Calling for secession or war. Now, if you're not a familiar in right-wing talking circles, Breitbart's a little bit more conservative right-wing than Fox News. So we start moving over in that direction the further we go down the fascism hole. And Milo was their poster child for a while. Said some things that even they couldn't condone and backed off of it. But he still has a fairly substantial audience. As you can see, within 3 hours, it's viewed by about 45 to 48,000 people. This is from the social media site Parler, which is advertising itself as basically a Facebook for conservatives that can't accept that Facebook fact checks some of their election memes now, election pictures that they post. Basically, Facebook said, yeah, we're not gonna help keep spreading this election conspiracy theory bit. So until somebody provides some evidence, we'll just say, hey, this isn't verified. Hey, this isn't what the evidence says. Facebook isn't coming out and saying, hey, Joe Biden's who we need for president because Donald Trump is crazy. That I would completely understand conservatives getting pissed off about and leaving Facebook for another site for. That would be censorship I wouldn't be in favor. Facebook isn't even censoring this stuff. They're just saying, yeah, there's no evidence to support this. Or they're saying, hey, all the evidence says that this is wrong and that this is, made up. And plenty of conservatives are saying that's too much. Don't tell me Santa's not real. I'm going to take my toys and go to my room and keep believing in Santa. There's a very simple solution to this. Provide the evidence. But again, to show conservative sources, conservative, even if they're not the mainstream conservative right now, are starting to talk about military intervention and secession. Okay, so Milo's just a guy, even if he is a popular conservative. So let's ignore him because the just a guy defense works there now too. Okay? How about former national security advisor under Donald Trump, General Michael Flynn?
General Michael Flynn, his former national security advisor, shared a press release on Twitter. It was from We the People Convention, an Ohio-based nonprofit, announcing they took out a full-page ad in the Washington Post. They urged Trump to declare a limited form of martial law and temporarily suspend the Constitution and civilian control of the elections. They say it'd be for the sole purpose of having the military oversee a national re-vote.
Okay, so now we've got two conservative thought leaders and a former national security advisor appointed by Trump himself saying maybe the military should get involved. For what? Because you didn't like the outcome of the election? Because you think that there was voter fraud that you can't provide any evidence of because you have a feeling? Seriously, guys. Seriously. I'm not sorry you lost. I'm happy you lost. Those of you who are reasonable, yes, absolutely. It's time to put aside our differences and get on to the serious matter of getting the country functioning and running again. We're in the midst of a global pandemic that we've been ignoring. We now have over 300,000 dead Americans. And we have a stock market crash that is looming because a large number of people in this country aren't going to be able to afford rent pretty soon. We have some serious problems to unify together and help solve. To put aside some political differences and get on to the business of governing. But if you're one of these guys advocating for the overthrow of democracy in this country because you didn't like the outcome, if you're one of these guys arguing for limited martial law, if you're one of these people that believes that there's election fraud and there is nothing short of Donald Trump coming out and saying that there wasn't that would change your mind, then I have no interest in unity with you. You have removed yourself from rational conversation. You have departed from evidence. And just like I don't try and tell my 5-year-old that Santa isn't real, I'm not going to waste my time having a conversation with you either. Until you can provide some evidence to back up your claims, or you realize that there is no evidence, put down the childish belief in Santa Claus, and come and join the adults. Until then, you can sit at the kiddie table. That includes the Texas Attorney General, who, after having the Supreme Court decline to hear his case because he had no standing. If you read the bottom part of this, perhaps law-abiding states should bond together and form a union of states that will abide by the Constitution. We've already fought a war about whether or not you get to secede or not. And if you want to secede from the United States, you don't get to claim to love this country anymore. And then the Arizona Republican Party retweeting, quoting somebody saying that they are willing to give their life for this fight. And saying that this lunatic is willing to go die for his belief in Trump's election fraud claims. Are you? Are you willing to die for your belief in Santa Claus? But no, I'm the unreasonable one. I'm the irrational one. Guys, this is completely normal. People contest elections all the time. Oh, you're blowing this up way too much. This isn't an attempt at a coup. "17 states signed on to this lawsuit as friendly. I believe it was 106 House Republican members also signed on to that lawsuit with zero evidence. I've got a former national security advisor advocating for limited martial law, again based on no evidence. I've got the Arizona Republican Party tweeting about people willing to die for their belief in this. And I've got a president who is on record saying he has a problem with ballots, who is on record being unwilling to commit to a peaceful transferal of power, and that the problem with elections are ballots, and if you just got rid of the ballots, you wouldn't have a transferal, you'd just have a continuation. But yes, I'm the one seeing things that aren't here. Now, do I think this is some grand design of Trump's? No. Frankly, I don't think he's that smart. I really don't. I think Trump is an opportunist. I think you can perfectly predict Trump's actions if you just look at the circumstances and pretend you're Trump for a minute and go, does this benefit me? And can I get away with it? If something pops up that might benefit him, his first impulse is absolutely full steam ahead, let's do it. And then his second thought is, can I get away with it? And by can I get away with it, I don't mean some people are going to be upset. I mean, there would have to be some serious consequences. So when I have a solid quarter of the House, 1/4 of the House, just call it, supporting this election fraud myth with zero evidence, when I have 17 states attorneys generals, again, call it a third to a half of the states supporting this myth with zero evidence, and I have a president who's unwilling to commit to a peaceful transferal of power, yeah, might be time to start looking at this a little bit more seriously. And I'm not the only one sitting here saying there's no evidence. 57 court cases have said there's no evidence. The one victory wasn't alleging fraud. Trump's own attorney general, A.G. Barr, has said that there's no evidence of massive multi-statewide election fraud. Some Republican senators and House members are coming out saying there's no election. But is 20 to 30% of the country enough to get away with it? If I'm Trump, does it benefit me? If it works? If it doesn't work? Do I get away with it? Do I get in trouble? Or do I just get to leave? And these people who think that secession is a good idea want to point to this map and go, see, it's all the center of the country. Basically, we'll just take the old South back, and we'll take the Midwest, and we'll split the country apart. The problem is this isn't an accurate representation of how the divide in this country is. It's not geographic. It's not north versus south, east versus west. This is how the election map looks by county. You see Texas? I'm pretty sure I can pick out Dallas. I'm pretty sure I can pick out Houston. I'm pretty sure I can pick out Austin. You know, the big cities. Oh, go look down in Florida. There's Miami right there. There's Tampa. There's Jacksonville. Oh, let's look at my home state currently of Nevada. Oh, I can find Las Vegas. California, I can see LA. I can see San Francisco. Washington, I can see Seattle. I'm pretty sure even in dead red Tennessee, I can see Nashville. So even if I was so un-American and didn't like this country that I was just like, yeah, y'all get out of here. Go do whatever you want to do. Even if I was like these people saying, yeah, secession's the way to go. We don't want you here because we're tired of paying your bills. How the hell do you divide that up? Like I said, I'm not in favor of it, obviously, because I'm an American and I actually love this country. And when my side loses, I don't throw a temper tantrum and say I'm packing up my toys and going home. Those of you out there who think that secession or civil war is the way to go, as insane as you are, how does that work exactly? We just going to take everybody in Dallas and move them out? Everybody in Austin and move them out? It's time to come back to reality land. We've all fallen for a lie at some point in our lives. We've all believed something that wasn't based on evidence and reason before. Whether it was Santa Claus, or that we could grow up to be president of the United States even though we were from a dirt poor family. Or whether it was alien abductions and UFOs. But none of that, none of those things tears apart the fabric of our country, which is what you are doing right now. If you cannot provide evidence of this, if you cannot find evidence for this, and by this I mean a massive, multi-state-wide conspiracy theory to swing the election to Joe Biden, then it's time to put it down. It's time to quit tearing this country apart and encouraging those, giving cover to those who would actually tear this country apart, who are advocating for secession, who are advocating for martial law, who are advocating for war. It's time for the adults in the room to quit listening to the children. Thank you for tuning in today.